Hey you, welcome back. If you're new, my name is Yubi. I use she, they pronouns, and this is You Becoming a Spiritual Journey. In 2020, I experienced what many people call a spiritual awakening, and I had no idea what to expect. In search for answers, I realized no one had documented the behind-the-scenes process of this unknown process. Without giving it a second thought, my friend helped me purchase a camera and create this channel to show people what the healing process looks like when you're determined to get to the other side. The more I recorded, the more comfortable I got speaking up, but mostly I got comfortable speaking my truth. After many tears, heartbreaks, and breakthroughs, I can confidently say this journey has been worth it. Get ready to get triggered as you watch my transformation unfold. This daily video journey is nothing fancy, nothing professional, just real, unedited, secret experiences unleashed for the world to see. All I ask is for you to keep an open mind, listen, observe, and take notes, because as I go through this process, I leave behind breadcrumbs to help you with your healing journey. Are you ready for what's next? It is still October 14th. I fixed the whole thing because I noticed that the last video, the focus was off. I don't know how it turned out that way, but I think it looks a little bit better this time. So it dawned on me, I wanted to bring this up. So I was reflecting. So I took a drive to the college this morning to pick up what we need for next week. And I was sitting in my car doing my work. It was great to just get out of the routine, right? Of doing work in home. And so I was just enjoying this process of just, being present in the moment. and I finished my work, but because I used my phone to record myself, the battery was low, so I was charging it. So as I was charging it, I took a book to read. I mentioned, those of you that have followed my journey know that I start reading a lot of books, and sometimes I don't finish them and I just leave them half read, or I have a lot of books that I'm reading. This was one of them. It's called Time is an Illusion. And it's an older book, clearly. This was one of the last purchases that I made at the Pomona antique store. And it 1986, right? The title caught my eye. Time is an Illusion. And I was reading it. I'm like, oh wow, I gotta read this again. So what happens is, when people use big words, titling it big words, it may not have been big words then, but for me it's big words. It takes me a bit to process that. I have to read it again. I'm like, wait, okay, I think I got it, but let me just read it again. And then I started highlighting certain words that I didn't know, and I looked them up. And I realized, so this concept of words came up in my mind, this concept of me repeating myself, talking too much, saying too much, right? And reflecting on the feedback that I got yesterday. And knowing, I know, okay, that I'm working at getting better at doing this presentation in a way that's more comfortable, right? Where I know what words to say and what not to say, and what I can omit, and how I can modify what I'm sharing if time, right, doesn't allow, or if we went over. And so the partner that I had, co-presenter, gave me really good feedback. They were like, write down the time that you're supposed to end, so that when you look up at the clock, I'm like, oh, duh, that makes sense, because I'm old school, right? I'm very do-through, where I'm 5, 10, 15, 20. I use my fingers to count. And so oh, that's a good idea, because I'm more visual. And just realizing, right, how I take in information and process information. And the other part too was, I went to turn in the leftover stuff from the presentation yesterday, and then I was trying to look for the bags that I went to pick up this morning, and I didn't see them, and it didn't dawn on me to look at where we have other places. I'm still learning, right? I'm still learning what that process looks like. So then I thought, well, maybe we're supposed to do it ourselves. So then I was starting to put stuff together, and I'm like, wow, this is really time consuming. I don't think I'm supposed to.
I'm still learning the rules. My main focus right now is on the content that I'm presenting. So all the other parts of the program and how it operates, the flow of it, I haven't really solidified it. So I decided to reach out to one of the presenters last week who seems like on top of everything. And so I was like, hey, I came to turn this in. Do you know if they're ready? Because I didn't see them inside the main office ready. And then he's just like, no, check in with Adele. So by this time, it had already been like an hour that I had been there, like trying to figure out where everything was, get familiar with just the visual setting of where the documents are. And I put some map packs together, but then I realized I'm like, maybe I'll mess up whose ever flow, right? And I don't want to mess up anybody's flow without asking. So I put everything back. And I decided not to reach out to our coordinator because time has already done. I'm like, even if I could put stuff together, I need to get back home. My in and out is getting cold. I need to eat. This is already like going on to 12, I think, 12:30. And so I figured I'll reach out and I'll ask later on. And I was, I had been sleep deprived and I wasn't feeling good. So I was like, I really want to rest. So I did. I reached out to a coordinator and I was like, hey, I have a couple questions. What does that process look like? Because I volunteered to bring the packets again for next week, but I didn't see them there. And what does it look like? Like, what does the process look like in terms of when they're ready for the following week? Why? Because I work on Fridays and I work on Saturdays. So for me, pickup would be on Thursdays. But if they're not technically ready on Thursdays, then I have to make accommodations, right? If I'm going to pick it up on Monday, either go in Monday early morning before school starts or do it the week before. So that's in my head, right? I'm like trying to organize myself. And so the coordinator responded and provided feedback. And just that little bit of experience that I had putting the packets together, I'm like, wow, this is really time consuming. Like, and we see a lot of kids during the week. And so it just, the appreciation of the process, the behind the scenes things that we don't see just set in. And so I mentioned it to our coordinator. I said, I'm really grateful. The more that I'm learning about the content and the presentation and all the behind the scenes stuff, the coordinating that it takes, because it's like in a couple weeks, it's going to be like 2 different schools, 2 different, like how to coordinate that with our schedules. Like, it's work. And so I just acknowledged, our coordinator. I was like, I'm in awe. Like, I'm just in awe that with the amount of people in staff, like it's really nobody, like it's just our coordinator and us presenters. I'm just like, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. So I acknowledge and I was grateful for that, and just the process, the behind the scenes stuff that we don't see to be able to provide, right? So it goes back to just the appreciation of the output, but the process within itself, right? All the different parts and how each person, right? And that was their response back was, it only flows because people show up, is what they said. It only flows because people show up. And I said, yeah, it's true. It's true. When people show up and do what they need to do, right? I learned that. So again, it's been a while that I work with a team. I mean, I have my individual counseling, but that's more independent work. So anyways, so as I was like sitting with that information of the repeating of myself, right, that I speak too much, and then reflecting back on what my friend had said when she had edited some of my work, and how she made a comment when she's just like, I don't like being spoon-fed the answer. And the repetitiveness, right, of how I say certain things and me not realizing it. And then in the beginning, this friend also was the one that highlighted how I, in the beginning, said I hate repeating myself, but I'm always repeating myself in the videos. So I thought about that. I'm like, I do it unconsciously. Sometimes it's purposeful because of the emphasis. And then I sat with that a little bit more. I'm like, the emphasis of why we do what we do, right? Why we repeat what we repeat. And then I was thinking about when I was a teacher or had like a teaching role to a certain degree, right? Substitute teaching, instructional teaching, and when I had my after school program and I was the teacher, right? How I would stress certain things, the repetitiveness of it. So I sat with that for a little bit. Then as I was reading this, some of it I was like, oh, that's what that means. I was like, yeah. And then there was this realization, I'm like, this isn't going to be new for me. Like, this is stuff that I've read before, that I've been told before, that I've seen before, in the videos before, right? The different ways that it's communicated, right? This repetitiveness of the message being repeated in different ways by different people in different mediums, right? People of all ages. Why? Right? The repetition of the tarot readings that I see, the cycles. I'm like, oh, there it is again, right? The cycle is there, right? Why? Then it dawned on me. Well, because, right, we're all at different starting points. It's going to appeal to the people who are ready for the information at that time point, but it's not going to appeal to others. So then what's going to happen is the cycle is going to have to repeat, and there's going to be a new group, a new wave of people communicating the exact same messages, or an expansion of that message to accommodate for the changes that have evolved up to that point in time, so that the message could be heard. Because how many times do you hear a message and not really listen? Not really take it in, not really use it to shift how you do what you do. And then we end up repeating the same issue, the same problem, right? We don't listen. So the people who get triggered, I used to be one of them. People who used to get triggered for hearing the same message over and over and over again. They don't understand the intention, the why, in the bigger scope of things. My ex would always forget. That's just where his starting point was, and I was frustrated. I was frustrated because I kept seeing that same starting point. Pero yo de mensa, right? Not de mensa, but me not knowing, right? The word dummy is just unawareness, right? Me not knowing that was what was happening, I still stayed there, right? It's what Einstein said, right? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And so this repetition of the message is not for that purpose, but it's to capture the ears of those who are ready to listen. 1986. I'm sure I'm going to read things in here that I already know. An expansion for this time, and maybe still will apply now, right? But even then, it's going to be a greater expansion. There were some things in here that I was just like, oh, well, maybe in that time, that's what that intention was in terms of how to view it that way. But now we have to look at it in a different way. I was even thinking about the content of the message that we were sharing with the kids and realizing the innocence. I was looking at the students and the content that we were saying, and then even looking at the script that was originally written, the evolvement of the storylines of the examples that are given in what we present. The actual written script is more intense compared to the version that I was being trained to teach. It was lighter. And then even as I was presenting to these freshmen, the discomfort within them just for the not simplified, but the storyline, the less intense storyline was still uncomfortable for them. Even some of the word choices that we used, there's an example, an activity where we have to use curse words. And I mean, gosh, when I was in high school, like most of us would use more curse words, and these kids were silent. I had maybe one or two, and they would whisper it. And it was a quieter class compared to the other ones, because it was the same class one of the same classes. But I just noticed, I was like, they're more innocent. There's an increased sensitivity, an increased sensitivity. When I read some of the evaluations, they even said like it was clean. It was clean. They wanted it clean. You know, like it's shifting. I'm seeing it. And I'm going to keep paying attention as I continue to present to these students to see how are they interpreting this information. Is it also a little too much? The simplified version, the less intense version, are we, you know, is it, what does that say about the kids that are being brought up nowadays, right? And is it how this world has been showing me that more of the generations to come are going to be more sensitive, right, to the energies, that they're going to have more abilities. There's going to be a shift with this evolvement of time in the next few decades. So I'm fascinated to see. But that's what I realized, this repetition of words, of lessons, of, I wonder if that's why I do it. I don't realize it. But it's to allow it to unfold, right? For those who are ready for it and those who are not. Anyways, I decided, so the school, City College, is up on a hill. And there's stairs, and then there's the ramp, right? And I decided to take the ramp this time, which is longer. It curves like this, right? It has to be longer versus the stairs that are straight up. And again, it made me think about the people who are ready, the people who are able, the people who are willing to do something different, right? You need to be ready, willing, and able to make a change, to follow through with it, to make it consistent, to maintain it, until you have to readjust and do it again. But I was thinking about how I would go up the stairs as it's a shorter route. And the people who have, you know, need other sources of transportation, right, mobilities, they go through this ramp. And I was also using the ramp because of my vertigo, because it's smoother versus the step. It like throws me off balance. I was able to do it, but still. In going that route, it was so nice because it was so foggy, and I took a picture of the dew, the water kept being captured in the right before it's gonna fall, and I took pictures of it and I'll post some. It's just beautiful to see, and it looked like it was Christmas snow, like just, but it's just the dew, the morning dew of you know, it was just wonderful to look at and take a picture of. And as I'm walking up this ramp, there's this old mural, or it's a mosaic that's faded, and you know, has education stuff, and then there's a something that said, show me the base, and I'll move the world, or something like that. Give me the base and I'll move the world. Like, give me the foundation, right? And I'll be able to move. Education. I was just thinking about that, how the different abilities, again, right? The ramp versus the stairs, and how we cross that path. We experience it with each other. We cross that path, and we forget these experiences that connect us. The emotional experience, right, of not being able to move after a surgery, not being able to move or need assistance, right? And for some people, that's the majority of their life. And for others, it's just a whiff of that experience, right? Intentionally, with the hopes that that person is aware enough to see, this is what it feels like. So that when I see my fellow companion, right, my fellow traveler in this journey of life, who requires that support and accessibility a lot more than I do, I can have more compassion for them, right? For the people who don't get it, who need the repetition over and over and over again, the compassion to be able to repeat it and not get triggered. And it has nothing to do with education. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're just different. It's just, that's just their expansion. I mean, it has to do with something different. It does. But the separation, the segregation, right? that I'm not going to look at you any less, because that's what your abilities look like. In whatever spectrum, right? Because we judge even those who are smarter than us. We judge those who have more than us, right? Just as much as we judge those who have less. For whatever reason. Anyways, enough of my rant. I need to eat. I got work.
Hey you, thanks for watching. Check out the description box under each episode below for additional thoughts and helpful links like my website, www.ubecominghealed.com, where I've gathered what I've learned and created self-paced online courses for you to access to help you get started on your healing journey. Oh, by the way, did I mention that I have over 20 years of experience in education and mental health? Rest assured, these videos are from my past and I'm living on a different timeline. I also offer sessions to answer your questions regarding the courses I've created or to help you figure out your next steps. You can also find me on Instagram and creating side projects like podcast shorts and more on my other YouTube channel that is still a work in progress, but aren't we all? It's titled Yubi Coming Healed. Remember to click like, subscribe, and share the content if you found this piece of my journey helpful or just to show emotional support for someone who has chosen to live a transparent life that is never ending and always becoming. Until next time.